The helicopter didn't descend, it dropped, slicing the air above my fence line so violently the dust lifted in waves. Before I could steady my grip on the hammer, two men in black suits were sprinting toward me, badges raised against the glare. "Mr. Rivers?" Back away from the ground now. Their voices carried urgency, not authority. Fear. I glanced at the half-dug post hole, just as a low vibration rippled through the dirt, rising into my boots, steady, unnatural, almost like a heartbeat made of metal. Both men froze, staring at the soil I'd disturbed. The taller one swallowed hard. It wasn't supposed to activate. Activate what? The two men didn't look like any federal agents I'd ever met, and I'd met plenty during my Marine years. Real agents carried themselves with quiet authority. These two carried themselves like men who expected obedience, not cooperation. The taller one, sun-leathered face, jaw clenched tight, moved with the precision of someone who rehearsed intimidation for a living. He scanned my fence line like it offended him personally, then zeroed in on me with a stare that felt practiced. His partner was broader, slower, the type who normally stands behind someone giving orders. But he watched everything, my hands, my tools, the ground I'd just disturbed, as if cataloging threats. Neither gave a name, neither offered a badge number, and both spoke in the same clipped rhythm, like they'd memorized a script they didn't fully understand. "Mr. Rivers," the tall one, said, "this area is off limits. You were told to stop." Told by who? This was the first time I'd ever seen them. That was their pattern, I'd learn: show up unannounced, assume control, and expect me to surrender my land without a single question asked. What bothered me wasn't just their behavior, it was their motive. They weren't here to enforce anything. They were here to protect something buried beneath my boots, something they desperately didn't want me to find. I never planned on inheriting trouble. When Wade died, he left me 200 acres of stubborn Texas earth land he worked, respected, and never once complained about. After Afghanistan, the quiet was exactly what I needed. Out here, problems were simple. Fix a fence, mend a roof, chase off a stray coyote. No bureaucracy. No hidden rules. No enemies pretending to be allies. So when I decided to finally finish the fence Wade started 20 years ago, it felt like closing a chapter he'd left open, until the land started pushing back. The first two failed attempts were easy to rationalize: dust storms, broken gear delays at the hardware store, annoyances, not omens. But the third time, that's when things stopped making sense. Silas Brennan, Dad's oldest friend, a man who knew this soil like it was family, walked over with a stiff gait and a face full of worry he didn't bother hiding. "Dalton," he'd murmured, "your dad never finished that line for a reason." He didn't explain, and the way he avoided looking at the ground made the hair on my arms rise. I packed up early that day, not because of weather or tools, because something in Silas's voice felt like a warning meant for survival, not construction. By the fourth attempt, the land felt wrong. Driving across the pasture, I felt a vibration through the steering column, steady and unnatural, like the engine was reacting to something beneath us. When I stepped out, the ground thrummed faintly under my boots. Not soft, not unstable, hollow. As if there was something down there that shouldn't be. Even Elena noticed the shift in my posture when I came home each day. She'd traded her Houston law office for a small-town practice, but her instincts were sharper than ever. "Land doesn't shake without a reason," she said. "And people don't hide information unless it benefits them." She was right. Nothing about the fence line or Wade's half-finished posts or Silas's warnings added up. But everything snapped into focus the morning. My hammer hit metal underground, a clear, ringing strike that echoed longer than it should have. And not even 60 seconds later, a black helicopter came for me. Whatever my father never finished, someone was determined I wouldn't finish either. By the time I returned to the fence line the next morning, something felt different. Not the paranoid "someone's watching" feeling. This was deeper, heavier, like the ground itself remembered what happened yesterday. When I approached the fence line, the dirt around post 26 looked disturbed, not from the rotor wash. Someone had been digging after I left. A clean, curved scoop of earth, like a shovel, had slid in and stopped. I knelt beside it. The vibration I'd felt yesterday, the one pulsing through my boots, was gone. Silent now. Too silent. Then I noticed something new. My string line marking the fence path had been moved. Not torn or tangled, straightened. Adjusted by exactly 3 inches, aligning perfectly with the underground cable I'd exposed. Whoever fixed it knew exactly what lay beneath the surface. As I stood up, a glint caught my eye, a tiny metal disc half buried in dust. I picked it up. A sensor, military grade, fresh, left there intentionally or forgotten in a hurry. Either way, the message was clear. Someone had returned to the site overnight. Someone who didn't want me near that buried conduit, and now they were watching my measurements down to the inch. That evening, while Elena reviewed work emails, the landline rang sharp, urgent like the caller expected obedience. "Mr. Rivers," the voice said. "Discontinue excavation. The ground you disturbed yesterday contains classified infrastructure. Infrastructure. On my land." Before I could challenge him, he added, "We know you re-entered the area today. Do not approach the material again." Click. No explanation, no agency, no ID. Elena checked the caller trace, there wasn't one. Then things got stranger. Wade's old filing cabinet held no mention of federal easements, no mineral leases, nothing unusual, until I opened a folder, misfiled under Utilities. Inside lay a document with a federal-looking header, Property Access Authorization, Titan Defense Energy, dated months before Wade's death. The signature at the bottom, Thomas W. Rivers. Except Wade never signed like that. His T's were flat, not curved. The slant was wrong, the pressure uneven. A forgery, one so confident it assumed no one would ever look twice. But why forge Wade's signature unless someone needed proof he'd given permission for? Something. As Elena held the paper under the lamp, a shadow moved outside our front window. Too tall to be a coyote, too still to be a passerby. Someone was close enough to watch us read it. The next escalation hit closer than any helicopter ever could. Elena pulled up Wade's autopsy to check dates. It wasn't just fast, it was rushed. No toxicology, no cardiac history, just one vague line, sudden cardiac arrest. No foul play suspected. But beneath it, almost hidden, subject exhibited signs of acute distress before collapse. Wade didn't stress. Not about money, ranching, weather, nothing. This was a man who stayed calm during a barn fire. Something had frightened him. And then the discovery that changed everything. I returned to the fence line to examine the conduit again. Brushing away new dust, I found not one cable, but 3 running parallel, each feeding into a metal junction box the size of a small cooler. Not ranch equipment, not state utility lines, and definitely not abandoned. When I touched the metal housing, it throbbed faintly, even though there was no power source in sight. It was humming with a pattern, slow, steady, mechanical. Someone installed an underground monitoring array beneath my property, and they didn't want it found. That night, our shed light was on. Inside, every tool had been moved, not stolen, not damaged, just placed in a straight military clean row. A silent message: we enter when we want, we touch what we want, and you can't stop us. The day the FBI came, I actually felt hope for about 10 seconds. 2 agent suits, crisp badges gleaming. Agent Miller and Agent Carter. Their tone was reassuring. Too reassuring. "We're here to address yesterday's impersonators," Miller said. "We understand a helicopter confronted you. Convenient. Too convenient." They examined the forged document from Wade's safe. Carter took photos, many photos, but not of the fake signature, not of the suspicious wording. He photographed the conduit serial number, the alignment, the direction it ran underground, as if confirming a technical layout. Then Miller asked lightly, "How much dirt did you remove yesterday? And did you notice any rhythmic vibration before the aircraft arrived?" Not investigative questions, operational ones. After they left, Elena ran the badge numbers. Both agents were real people but dead since 2016. My stomach dropped. The helicopter wasn't an isolated scare tactic. The phone call wasn't random. The forged documents weren't sloppy. It was all one coordinated operation. One group, one agenda. And they were now escalating to reclaim whatever I had uncovered. The midnight phone call removed any doubt of their intentions. A slow, precise voice: "Mr. Rivers, you're approaching restricted material. Your father understood the consequences of non-compliance. We expect you to do better." My chest tightened. "You threatened him," I said. "Did you kill him?" A pause so long the silence felt like pressure. "Your father chose poorly." Elena slammed the phone down, shaking. "They're done pretending. Dalton, they're telling you the next move is yours." Moments later, motion lights flared behind the barn. I rushed outside. Fresh boot prints, large, uniform tread, circled the exact spot where I hit metal the first time. And beside the prints lay a small object, a broken sensor disc identical to the one I found the previous morning. Except this one was crushed, not by accident, by intent. A warning: "You're digging in the wrong place. Stop or we'll stop you." Standing there under the moonlight, staring at the compromised ground, Wade never finished fencing. I suddenly understood. He'd found this too. He'd tried to get help. Someone made sure he never finished the job. Tomorrow, if I walked back out there with a sledgehammer, They wouldn't send warnings. They'd send whatever they used on Wade. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I was ready. They came back at sunrise, not quietly this time. The black helicopter thundered over the ridge, circling low like it was herding me toward the fence line. 3 SUVs kicked up dust behind it from different directions, intentional, coordinated, like a tactical sweep. I kept working hammer raised, refusing to step back from the half-dug post. 12 men in suits fanned out, forming a perimeter around me. Their leader, the tall one, from the first encounter, walked forward with a new confidence, no longer pretending to be federal. "Mr. Rivers," he said, voice stripped of restraint, "step away from the excavation. You're in possession of restricted subsurface material." My hammer hit the post with a clean metallic ring that echoed louder than it should have. He flinched. Whatever was buried beneath us terrified him more than confronting me did. "You've ignored all warnings," he continued, lifting a document that looked official until the sunlight revealed the cheap laminate shine. "By emergency authority, this land is being seized indefinitely." I laughed once sharp. "Then read it, out loud. Cite the statute." His jaw tightened. He couldn't, because there was no legal authority, just a group running out of time, trying to secure whatever pulsed beneath our soil. That's when a familiar voice called out, "Dalton, step aside." Silas. But not the Silas I knew. Silas Brennan stepped through the dust, not hunched, not hesitant, upright, steady, authoritative. His voice was calm but carried the weight of someone who had finally stopped pretending. Knox, the tall fake agent, froze mid-step. Silas pulled a digital recorder from his pocket, pressed play, and the desert filled with the same radio transmission I'd overheard days earlier. "Operation Land Grab proceeding. Subject Rivers remains non-compliant. Recommend Phase 3 protocols." The men in suits stiffened. Knox's eyes widened. Silas wasn't finished. He lifted his shirt slightly to reveal a badge clipped inside his belt, not the glossy fake credentials these men carried, but a worn real one with the unmistakable star of the Texas Rangers. "Name's Brennan. Texas Ranger working undercover with the FBI Violent Crimes Task Force," he said, voice steady as bedrock. "We've been building a case on your group for 18 months. Fraud, impersonation of federal officers, illegal monitoring installations, and 11 suspicious landowner deaths across 3 states. Knox took a half step back. You fed us intel." "No," Silas corrected. "I let you think I was scared. That's different." From behind my fence line, Elena's voice carried through a megaphone. "We have live recordings transmitting to federal servers. Your entire operation is documented." Real FBI agents stepped out from behind a stand of mesquite weapons drawn. The suits went pale. Their script was over. Knox tried to pivot first to denial, then to bargaining. "This land contains strategic save it," Silas snapped. "You buried illegal extraction hardware under private property. You murdered landowners to secure mineral access. You forged federal documents. We have everything." Knox's voice cracked. "You don't understand what's under here." "Oh, we understand," Elena said, stepping beside me calm, as if she'd been preparing for this moment her whole life. "Horizontal drilling maps, forged access agreements, corporate shell structures. You were stealing oil, not protecting national security." Real agents moved in, cuffing the first wave of imposters. Several tried to run. They were tackled into the dirt before they made it 10 yards. Knox turned toward the helicopter. Extract now." The pilot shook his head. FBI lasers were pointed directly at his cockpit. He was trapped. As they cuffed Knox, he snarled at me, "Your father fought us too. Look what it cost him." The world narrowed. Elena grabbed my arm before I swung. "Don't," she whispered. "Your father gets justice today." Knox was shoved into a federal SUV, his empire collapsing in seconds. Silas nodded at me. "Finish it." So I did. I lifted my hammer, drove the final fence post into the hard-pan Texas dirt, the metallic ring echoing across the desert like the closing of a case 3 years overdue. The fence line was complete. The truth was out. And the men who terrorized my family were finally in chains. When the dust finally settled and the last SUV disappeared down the county road, the silence felt unreal. For the first time in months, it wasn't threatening. It was clean. I stood beside the finished fence, hands still trembling from adrenaline when the weight of everything hit me at once. What they'd done to Wade, what they'd tried to do to us, how close I'd come to losing the land my father protected his whole life. Elena slipped her hand into mine. "They can't touch this anymore," she whispered. "None of it." Word spread quickly through town, first a rumor, then relief. Neighbors who'd quietly feared the same strange vehicles and black helicopters finally understood what had been happening. Some admitted they'd heard late-night engines near the old ridge. Others remembered seeing unfamiliar survey crews years back. The community didn't blame me. They rallied. Folks brought food, filled the house with noise, offered help, shared stories about Wade, stories I'd never heard. For the first time, I realized how many people he must have protected by refusing to sign away his land. That night, sitting on the porch with Elena, I listened to the wind move through the mesquite and thought, Dad didn't lose this fight. He just didn't get to finish it. But I had. The legal avalanche came fast once the FBI unsealed the case. Knox Morrison, corporate predator, mastermind of the forged documents, orchestrator of the landowner deaths, was charged with federal impersonation, racketeering, mineral theft, conspiracy to commit murder, use of unauthorized surveillance equipment, tampering with federal identification, and 11 counts of wrongful death linked to his operation. He received 23 years in federal prison. Some of his men took plea deals 8 to 15 years each. Others cooperated, revealing the extent of the operation. Titan Defense Energy collapsed overnight. Blackstone Energy Solutions, the drilling arm, was exposed as the shell corporation funding the extraction. And then came the forensics. Wade's death certificate was officially amended. Toxicology analysis on preserved tissue samples confirmed an exotic cardiac stimulant, one used in veterinary sedation, intentionally administered in microdose form. It hadn't been a heart attack. It had been engineered. The government granted us full mineral rights restitution. The underground formation, mapped correctly now, was larger than the criminals even realized. Elena ensured every legal angle was bulletproof. When we received our first legitimate revenue check, she handed it to me quietly. This isn't payment for what they took, she said. It's proof they didn't win. 2 years later, I walked the fence line again. The Texas sun warmed the steel posts as if sealing them into the earth. 60 yards in, I stopped at the exact point where my hammer first struck metal, the blow that triggered everything. The ground was calm now. No vibration, no hidden hum. The federal team had removed every illegal conduit, every sensor, every trace of Morrison's operation. All that remained was Wade's land, and my responsibility to protect it. I heard a truck behind me, Silas, retired now, softer in the shoulders, but the same steady eyes. You kept it standing, he said, nodding at the fence. I wasn't about to let their work outlast his, I replied. Silas leaned against a post. Funny thing about land, folks think it's dirt. It's not. It's memory. People try to take it because they think it's weak, but land holds on to the truth longer than men do. Before leaving, he handed me an envelope, Wade's handwriting on the front, found in the evidence locker. Inside was a single line written months before he died. If they come for the land, they come for the family. Don't let them. I folded the letter, placed it in my pocket, and looked across the acres he fought so hard to keep. The ranch was peaceful again, the sky endless, the land mine secured by law and legacy. And as the wind whispered through the wire, I realized the real triumph wasn't the oil, the lawsuit, or the prison sentences. It was this moment, standing on my father's land, knowing the fight was over and the right people had won. Some fences mark boundaries. Ours marked the truth, and the truth held.